read us your tier 3. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the tier 3 on my own list because I wanted to make sure I tried at least to include everybody who is labeled a star. If we somehow miss somebody, we're sorry. We think we included just about everybody who deserves to be on this list. Here is tier 3. If TJ wants to add anybody else, he can. In tier 3, and again, we're not including Julio in any of these tiers yet. We're going to rank him at the end. These are players, what we name this tier is players in Julio's range that we would probably rank him over. Corbin Carroll, Luis Robert, Kyle Tucker, Austin Riley. I had Fernando Tatis in this tier. Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, Marcus Semien, who I also had in this tier, Bobby Witt, Paul Goldschmidt, Trey Turner, again, different tiers on that one, Rafael Devers, Nolan Arenado, Jose Ramirez, Alex Bregman. We tried to include everybody. That is the lump of guys that is right around Julio's range, or at least close to it.
I had Adley in there too.
Oh, good call. We left out Adley. Okay, so Adley Rutschman, last guy. That's about 28 guys. Yeah, there's a lot of stars in this game. And should we add too, we're not putting pitchers in here. Like, it's just too hard to say what's Julio's value to Garrett Cole's or Zach Wheeler's or whoever, because it's like, okay, you can compare wars, but then what? It's impossible. So
yeah, I mean, unless you want Julio to get on a mound, which would be fun to watch.
Could he hit? How fast do we think he'd hit? I mean, probably over 90, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could probably go low 90s. But like, the problem is his mechanics aren't fine tuned enough for him to really unlock. I mean, if he really had, let's say he had like immaculate mechanics, I wouldn't be shocked if he could touch over 95. But you got to do that. You got to really put work in to do that.
Yeah, you do. I don't know if there's anybody in here that we really should highlight. I guess there's a couple. One, maybe people are going to ask about Bryce Harper, why he's so low. Look, from where he stands right now, he's not really playing any defense. He can barely throw the ball. So
it's kind of a deal breaker right there.
Yeah. So maybe TJ and I are going to differ on this a little bit, but at least I know how in my rankings I'm factoring Julio into all this. Look, defense is going to matter for me. I know it might not to everybody, but the fact Julio is a true 5-tool guy matters. There are guys on this list that are phenomenal at one or two things, but they are not all-around players. So we're going to get to that in a bit. But Bryce Harper, as we said, is not currently an all-around player because, again, he hits, and he hits phenomenally, but he's not really playing defense.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think you're really missing anyone that I didn't have in my third tier. I mean, I didn't write down Devers, but Devers is definitely in that third tier for sure. But Devers is another guy whose defense is just shaky. To try and complement it with the bat is an interesting task for Rafi, and he's consistent hitting, but he's definitely in that third tier.
Yeah, I spoiler, Julio's going to rank ahead of Rafael Devers on my list.
Same in mine.
I'm trying to think anybody else on here that's worth it. I mean, somebody like Corbin Carroll and Julio are close, and maybe that'll reflect in the rankings. I think somebody like we talked about Tatis, Austin Riley's a pretty interesting guy. I mean, I think I've said this for a while now. This guy might be the most slept on player in baseball still. Like, I know everybody knows Austin Riley now, but I still feel like he's less appreciated than he should be.
Yeah, he's in my third tier, and I like, not a secret. Julio's going to be over him, but consistency is there. I mean, he's not the world's best defender at third base, which does not help him, and which separates him from, say, a prime Nolan Arenado or Jose Ramirez at his best. But in terms of swinging the bat, I mean, he's pretty darn good. He's not in the top tier of hitters in Major League Baseball. And I think if he was in the top tier of Major League Baseball and hitters, he would be a little higher on this list, because average defense with unbelievable offensive production lands you in the second tier, but really good offensive production and middling defense probably puts you in the third tier.
Yeah, and he's in my third tier too, which I agree with. I guess the one other guy you had in tier 2 that I had in tier 3 was Marcus Semien. And he hasn't out-hit Julio either season. And I mean, I guess both guys play defensive positions that are important and play very good defense, but I guess I just wouldn't say Semien is a better ball player than Julio. I know he finished higher in the MVP voting this year, and maybe that's a fair thing.
I'll say that's not even something I really honestly considered. Here's my Marcus Semien thing. First of all, he has missed one game in 3 seasons. That's pretty valuable. First off, you get every cent of your contract that's worth that. And I also took it to a slight context of second baseman. Like, second base isn't a great hitting position outside of Altuve and Semien. So the fact that he's able to do that while playing the best defense in the league at second base, I mean, it's a pretty good player. So I mean, he ranks higher than I think some people would. I know some people might think his 104 WRC plus in 22 is legitimately not concerning, but would knock him down a tier, and I totally wouldn't blame anyone for doing that. But I think Semien's really proven himself over time to earn his way into that second tier.
All right. I mean, look, he was an MVP finalist this year, but he was an MVP finalist and also still didn't put up a higher WRC plus than Julio this year. Like, people tab this year as a down year for Julio, and look, first half of the year, he had his issues. He wasn't hitting as well as people expected him to. But when it was all said and done, Julio still put up a higher WRC plus than Semien did. And back in 22, Julio was about 40% better, if not higher, than Semien was. So I'm probably going to have Julio over Semien. Again, what do we keep saying? This is all subjective. If you have an argument otherwise, that's totally fair. But these are different. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover before we get to it here. Like, where are we going to rank Julio Rodriguez on each of our lists?
Yeah, I'm doing some secondhand on the job evaluation here, dog. So it might be a last minute switch.
Okay,
so doing some deep thinking.
Are you putting the pressure on me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay.
He's still not going to be ranked where you ranked him.
Okay. I have Julio Rodriguez at number 8 among all players in baseball. I have the first 5 ahead of him: Shohei, Acuna, Betts, Judge, Freeman. I have Corey Seager ahead of him. I have Mike Trout ahead of him. And Trout is interesting, right? Because you have to measure Trout of, okay, he's the best player in baseball outside of Shohei when he's healthy. Hasn't been healthy in a long time for a full season. I get it. If Julio has one more big year and Trout's still hurt, I'll catapult Julio over Trout. For now, I'm still going to leave Trout there. But yeah, he's at 8. And what did I say? Defense plays a factor into this for me. And truthfully, it plays an important one. And I guess base running to some extent does too. People are going to say Juan Soto, Yordan Alvarez, like Matt Olson. Look, those guys are phenomenal players. And it's, again, we're splitting hairs here, like we said earlier. Juan Soto does not play a lick of defense. Look, Juan Soto occupies left field or right field. He does not play a lick of defense. He's one of the best hitters in the world. But his overall value often ranks below where Julio is because he doesn't play any defense. Yordan's pretty much the same thing. It's funny. Yordan he's actually measured okay out in left field, but he also plays in like the smallest left field in baseball, having to roam around those Crawford boxes at Minute Maid Park. It's the same deal. Yordan is not valuable defensively, and Julio is. So I have him over guys like that. And I know Matt Olson just had this historic season. But again, position that is not all that valued defensively at first base. Outside of that huge 2023, he has not had another year like that anytime recently. And there's a lot of ways in which Julio ranks out better than Olson does. So again, subjective. Other people may feel differently. This is where I have Julio. It's 8. 8 in baseball.
Yeah, so I was pretty conflicted in my rankings. I'm honestly doing it's like I'm tinkering my fantasy football lineup right here. That's what I'm doing with these rankings. I had him at 13. Man, like, this is going to be such a odd ranking. I think if I were to get another shot at this, I might switch some things up here, but I'm just going to stick with my guns because this is what I did. So Shohei's obviously number 1. Mookie, Ronald, Aaron Judge, Corey Seager, Freddie Freeman, the top 6. I think it's kind of hard to argue those. I think those players this past season have established themselves as the best 6 players in baseball. Mike Trout at 7. Jose Ramirez keeps his top 10 spot at 8. Matt Olson's at 9. I mean, he was the 4th best offensive player in baseball this season. And as a first baseman was worth more wins above replacement than Julio this year. Like, let's take that into account. Like, that's pretty significant. That tells you the level of player he is over there. So after Matt Olson, I have Altuve, who continues to just be incredible. Then I have Fernando Tatis and Marcus Semien. The big one is probably Marcus Semien here. And if I were to go back on my word and reevaluate, Marcus Semien's position might change. But I'm going to stick consistent on this podcast. I'm going to put Marcus Semien at 12 and Julio at 13. Then right after that is Juan Soto and Yordan Alvarez, who are probably, if we're talking hitters in baseball, they're both in the top 3. But for the sake of these rankings, they would be ranked right after Julio. So that's where I have Julio in this list. And I do think I did a good job of evaluating defense in this list as well, with including Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, who are two pretty good gloves at first base, and taking into account that like their defense is pretty good and their offense is otherworldly, as two of the 4 best hitters in baseball this past season. So I think that's a pretty good list. I'm sure someone in the comment section is going to call me an idiot, which, hey, you're allowed to do that.
You're going to get called a hater. I'm going to get called a homer. Like, that's just how it's going to go. So
that's fine. And I also want to put into context, like you said, like Julio had a down offensive season. Well, yeah, he did. Julio was a good hitter or a great hitter, for 1 month. He was like a good hitter for another month, and the rest of the months he was probably not good enough. Like, for a top 10 player in baseball, top 10 players don't do that. Not really.
Not usually, but again, the defense plays a big help. And I mean, when it was all said and done, that was his yearly production. It would have been nice if it was spread out more, but production's production. And
you're right.
So wherever it came from, it did stem from somewhere. I will say, you have Jordan and Soto much lower than I would have figured. Like, I do not have those guys currently behind players like Tatis and Semien.
Well, if you're taking defense into account, then
yeah.
That's it. I mean, we're talking about like Marcus Semien, like, again, one of the best defenders on the infield in baseball, and Fernando Tatis, maybe the best defender of the outfield in baseball, on top of good offensive production.
Yeah, it's hard to measure. Again, it's so subjective. All these guys are so good. I guess it's the fact that while they might not be the best overall players, there is an argument here to be made. Juan Soto and Yordan Alvarez are the 2 best pure hitters on planet Earth. So...
And Shohei.
Yeah, okay, and Shohei. But there is an argument there. There is an argument that you could put somebody like Yordan or like Soto ahead of Shohei. I'm not saying everybody would, but some people might.
And we're also not saying they're not worth the money. They will eventually get. When Juan Soto signs a contract for over $40 million a year, yeah, he deserves it. And if the Mariners could afford that, I would pay him every single cent that he wants.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, I do look forward to seeing what the replies are going to be to these. I'm sure there'll be a jolly old time with a lot of calm heads.
Okay, let's run through our list one more time, so just in case people missed it. So I'm going to go through mine. If Julio at 13, the ranking goes Shohei, Mookie, Acuna, Judge, Seager, Freeman, Trout, Ramirez, Olson, Altuve, Tatis, Semien, Julio, and then Soto and Yordan Alvarez after him.
Okay, so I had Shohei, Acuna, Betts, Judge, Freeman, Corey Seager, Mike Trout, Julio at 8, Juan Soto at 9, Alvarez at 10.
Okay, there we go.
So.
Fire away, boys.
Fire away. Like I said, will cool heads prevail? Will we have some calm people in the replies? Well, YouTube doesn't usually go that way, does it?
No. I don't think so. I wish, but that would be nice. It'd be a little bit easier to sift through the comments.